Hey Reddit, I, male 43, have been with my current wife Amanda, female 42, for the past 6 years, and we have two daughters, Becca, female 4, and Eliza 2F together. I also have two kids from my previous marriage, Liam, male 17, and Sage 15F. The divorce was less than amicable, and since my ex-wife had more money and a better paying job, she was awarded primary custody despite me fighting it. For the last 8 years, I've had my older kids every other weekend and on Wednesdays. A few weeks ago, my older kids asked if they could live with us full-time due to issues with their stepdad. Liam especially had come to blows with him a few times, and even their mother thought it would be for the best. I did talk to my wife about it, and I know she wasn't happy as she feels uncomfortable around my older kids. Although this is something she neglected to tell me until we had our first child together. Things since Liam and Sage moved in have been hard, and as much as I'd love to get some family therapy, my wife is against it, and we're on a waiting list. Before, when my kids would come over, my wife would take our daughters to her parents a lot to give us space, even though I never asked for it. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm sure being a step-parent is difficult, but my kids are really good kids. They have straight A's, lots of friends, play sports, and are incredibly respectful. I know I'm biased, but people go out of their way to tell me these things. So it has been terrible watching Amanda nitpick everything they do, almost as if she's waiting for them to slip up so she can send them back to their moms. We had already gotten into an argument over the holidays due to her trying to push them out of our traditions. Our older daughter, Becca, is going through a biting phase. Her school wants her to get OT, and I've been working with our insurance since Amanda doesn't like the one at the school. But as always, it seems like there's an endless wait list. So obviously, the house is tense, and we've all been walking on eggshells. Then yesterday morning, when I was making us some breakfast, we heard a scream, and Becca came into the kitchen crying and saying that Sage hit her. Amanda ran into the den where Liam and Sage were and started screaming at them to leave. She was obviously pissed, but Sage told her she was sorry. She had been done with the TV, so she changed it to one of the girls' shows, and Becca got excited and bit her. She said she didn't mean to slap her and felt bad. I immediately calmed down because I think anyone has been there, but Amanda didn't believe her. Sage had a bite mark, for God's sake. Things continued escalating, and our girls were crying, and Amanda screamed at both of my older kids to leave. Sage told her she would, so she could calm down, and that pissed Amanda off more. Liam and Sage left for a friend's and ended up spending the night there. So for the past day, Amanda has been on one, saying I needed to pack their things and send them back to my ex-wife's permanently. I can't keep dealing with this BS. I told her this morning that it was an accident and she needed to let it go, but she's refusing, even threatening to call the police. She said she could never be comfortable with her babies around Sage anymore and that she didn't feel safe. I laughed because Amanda herself once hit Becca for biting her. She ended up taking the girls to her mom's, and I told my kids to come back. Amanda has been texting me that she'll be back tomorrow and the kids needed to be gone. I was ignoring her, but finally said this was their home, and if she was comfortable, she could pack up and leave. My parents came over and basically told me I wasn't wrong, but shouldn't have said she should leave. I know there are some things you can take back, but at this point, I almost mean it. I would hate to deal with another divorce. But Amanda has been so terrible to my older kids the past few weeks. I honestly feel like she's become a different person. Edit, just to clarify some things. When we had every other weekend, plus Wednesday custody, my wife would take the girls to her parents on Wednesday only, and I would take the youngest to dinner. Before we had kids, she'd go to dinner, but our girls aren't the best at restaurants. She would be here on weekends. My son is not violent. His stepdad believed in violence as a form of punishment, which I do not and never did. But that's why they asked to live with me. Sage has gone from apologetic to fully devastated about this. She offered to go back to her mom's as long as Liam didn't have to. I told her that would never be necessary. She did not mean to hit her sister, and Becca was incredibly upset about biting her. We are working on it, but we are a single-income family, and I can't afford an OT outside of my insurance. I am probably going to utilize the school's OT, though, despite what Amanda said. Also, our youngest was not planned, but things seem to be getting better, so we were excited. I did get a vasectomy after that, but I love all my children. Now for some comments. When we first got together, she was great to them. It was after we had our first daughter that she got cold towards them. She tells me it's unfair to have to live with kids that aren't hers, and has told me I need to prioritize our family. It's more than just frustrating. Basically, she thinks they're just miniature versions of my ex, which isn't fair. She says she can't trust them, and they're not her family. It was not always like this, though. I wouldn't have married or had kids with her if I knew she'd end up this way. Now for a quick update. All 4 of my kids are okay and with me. Amanda is still at her parents' house. My older two kids have told me some disturbing things that they've been feeling since moving in full time. It took me a while to get it out of them. They said they've been uneasy and have felt like if they put a single toe out of line, they'd be forced to go back to their moms or be homeless. They've been trying to be good and perfect and nice, and they're getting worn down. They say they don't know what changed in Amanda because she used to love them and be kind to them, and I didn't have a good answer, but I told them it wasn't their fault. My son said he's worried that she'll tell the younger ones lies about them or something else, and they were uncomfortable being around the kids even though they love them. My daughter again offered to move back to her mom's if Liam can stay, which broke my heart. Liam said they would live with my parents if they'd have them, which hurt even more. I told them they weren't going anywhere. They said they know how upset I was after the divorce and don't want that, but I told them repeatedly my marriage wasn't their problem to worry about. Meanwhile, Amanda has been texting me nonstop. I've not been responding unless it was about Eliza and Becca. She said some incredibly cruel things about me, my older two kids, and our relationship, basically telling me my kids just want us to break up just like their stepdad, and I shouldn't let them win, calling them spoiled and entitled and smart asses who would ruin my life if I keep letting them. I obviously ignored that, but between all this, she texted me a list she wrote of her non-negotiables for her to move back in. They were all pretty deranged, except one did say she wanted cameras put up in common areas, which I've already decided on and ordered, but other than that, she demanded cutting Sage and Liam out of the will as they will get money from their mom, which is insane. And also, it's hot, like we're talking expecting to be able to leave much to anyone. The house is the one I had bought with my ex-wife. She wants to sell it and buy one to start fresh. I want to point out that when we got together, I told her I was definitely going to be staying in this house until my kids went to college, since it's their childhood home. And now it's our girls' childhood home, so I won't be leaving. They would need to find somewhere else to live when they turn 18. Also insane, because she knows I think that's trashy, and they turn 18 in the middle of their senior years. She did not want to have to do anything with my older kids, including family events, dinners, and vacations. And yes, that would mean excluding my oldest from any family vacations, pictures, all of that. She does not want our daughters around Sage or Liam. She wants veto power over any extra time or money I'd be spending on Sage and Liam to make sure things stay fair. Probably the most deranged one was that she wants half of the child support their mom is sending put into a retirement account in only her name. It was immature, but I just did the ha-ha thing to that text, and she sent some other BS texts to piss me off. I talked to my father-in-law earlier today when he picked up/dropped off the younger girls from church. He seemed annoyed with the whole situation and referred to it as Amanda's little tantrum. Originally, the girls were going to go home with them, but they threw a fit. Luckily, I'm off work this week to be with them. The sad thing is that Sage and Liam have been avoiding the younger girls, which is devastating for them, but I'm trying to work on explaining everything right now. I did find a therapist for my kids this week. It's out of pocket, but obviously, I can't wait longer. I don't know what Amanda is up to. She FaceTimed the girls earlier, but I don't talk to her. I don't know how fixable this is. I told her if she wanted therapy, I'd set it up, and she was emphatic that it was not necessary. I told her that was my non-negotiable, lol. So not a great update, but it's nice to get feedback. I might not update much if things go the way I think they're going, but I have to do what I have to do. Am I the idiot for moving my desk away from the entitled coworker who blamed me for my own trauma? I've officially had it, and I'm commencing a campaign of relatively benign psychological warfare against one of my coworkers. I'll call him Dan. Dan started at the company in November and seemed cool at first, but I have slowly grown to find him very annoying. There are too many examples to get into, but I would describe him as an entitled impertinent sourpuss with a nicotine addiction and a self-professed problem with following the rules. Why would you brag about this at work? He is my same age and role. For the record, I also arguably have a nicotine addiction, but I don't make it obvious in my place of work. So, a few days ago, I regrettably had a horrifying emergency on my way into work. The whole ordeal unfolded very quickly, and while I was unmuted on a work call with my whole team, I don't want to go into details of the emergency, but it involved me getting caught up in an altercation that had nothing to do with me, but resulted in me having a very public panic attack that my entire work team also heard over the phone. I am diagnosed with panic disorder. I was indisposed for a couple days after the emergency, and once I was able to return, my work computer was still in my office building, which I ultimately never reached, so I couldn't do any actual work beyond sending emails, messages off my phone. Almost all of my coworkers, who I've worked with for about 7 years now at this company, were incredibly supportive, sent me kind messages, and were generally concerned for my well-being, having directly heard me go through this ordeal in real time, and I still feel mortified. So their support really means the world. A few coworkers even contacted every single person I had scheduled meetings with to let them know I had an emergency. They seamlessly picked up my critical work tasks and offered to drop off my computer at home for me. I mean, these people rock, and that's why I've been at the company for 7 years. Dan, however, has appeared to have seized upon this opportunity, my traumatic emergency, to highlight my shortcomings. In the immediate aftermath of the emergency, when my coworkers were exchanging messages of support and concern about me, Dan sent no such messages, and he didn't ask how he could support. Instead, he inserted an absolutely useless recommendation into the team group chat about how I could have avoided this emergency in the first place. He immediately tried to turn my trauma into a learning moment, as if it was so obvious that this would have happened to me because of the choices I made leading up to it. Very she was asking for it in that dress, if you ask me. Gross. Then, I am finally recuperated enough to look at my phone a couple days after the emergency. I get a message from a PM that I work with, asking me about the status of a report that I had put Dan in charge of. The PM tells me that they spoke with Dan yesterday, and that Dan said the report was in my court. But interestingly enough, Dan conveniently failed to mention to the PM during that conversation that I had suffered a major emergency, that Dan had witnessed just the day before, that I was presently indisposed, and that I would likely need some time to recover. Not to mention, Dan had never communicated to me prior to the emergency that the report was ready for me to review. He kept saying he had one more task to complete, so forget him. Despite the chaos and trauma of that terrible event, I feel a renewed sense of gratitude for my life, my freedom, and the everyday privilege of being alive and surrounded by a supportive community. And I feel even more protective of it now. Things can change in an instant in ways that you couldn't possibly imagine. I truly do not have any more time for nonsense. And for this reason, I feel absolutely justified in canceling Dan from my life. I'm not going to try to get him fired or anything like that, but I refuse to spend my days in close proximity to him at the office. We currently sit right next to each other in a 2-desk office space, but there are other desks in an adjacent office space that I can use, so I plan to move my desk away from his. He can say goodbye to any and all opportunities to support me on my projects. I no longer trust him to be a reliable and respectful team player. And most importantly, if he decides to confront me, which he might because he's actually alarmingly confrontational, I will calmly explain to him that I find his professionalism and working style to be unaligned with what I'm looking for on my projects and in my career. He'll have to find someone else to work with. Good luck, you piece of work. That's all. Thanks for listening. Now for a few comments. One commenter suggested, sync him. Communicate to the PM his messages about one more task to complete and express your surprise that he didn't mention this when the PM asked him about it, especially with his awareness that you would be unavailable for several days. Then disengage from him in the workplace. To which OP responded, this is precisely the plan. Thank you for your support. Another commenter advised, crucify him the first chance you get. Throw him under the bus every chance you have. Shine a light on his mistakes, failures, shortcomings, and make him look as bad as he tried to make you look. Good luck, and I hope you're doing better now. OP replied, absolutely diabolical, I love it. Thank you, I am feeling much better. A few more tough days ahead, I'm afraid, but I'm taking it day by day. A different commenter expressed, you are an inspiration. I am sending grandma hugs your way. And OP replied with gratitude, oh, thank you so much. The same commenter continued, you're very welcome. I'm so sorry you had to go through such a traumatic event. And honestly, as a mother of 3 daughters, I am so incredibly impressed with how you are handling all this. Well done. OP responded, I'm an oldest sister of 3 daughters. I was almost like, wait, mom? Lol. My mom isn't a grandma quite yet. Soon, though. Finally, the commenter shared more personal thoughts, and OP replied, you sound just like my mom. Thanks for your words of encouragement. OP clarifies what got her arrested. It definitely wasn't an accident, but I was in the wrong place at the wrong time. I was profiled as someone the police wanted to target, and they targeted me without bothering to check themselves. Having spent 36 hours in jail talking with multiple other women, you would be surprised at how many people are there without having any idea why, and it's not because they're on drugs. Since you asked, I was trying to help someone and was mistakenly and forcibly arrested by police while they were raiding a protest that I was not taking part in. The protest was right outside my office building, which I was trying to get to. I was thrown in jail for 36 hours, which is why I was indisposed. I wasn't given access to my prescribed medication, and in addition to the panic attack I suffered during the arrest, I had about 5 more over the next 12 hours, all while being totally ignored and laughed at by officers who were supposed to keep me safe. By the time I got out of jail, I was a zombie and I couldn't even spell my own name. Also, my job does involve manual labor. I work on construction sites, install wells, and perform sampling. I'm trained to operate man lifts, nuclear density gauges, and handle hazardous substances. Man, y'all are just wow. Now for the 2-month update. Felt like posting an update. All my charges, 4 misdemeanors for resisting arrest, were dismissed because the police arrested me unlawfully. I am also moving forward with civil litigation against the police department. Thought about just dropping it and moving on with my life, but then I saw the police body cam footage, and it is disturbing, to say the least. Worse than I even remembered. It brought my partner and father to tears. They are not criers. My mother was simply hysterical and couldn't even get through the first few minutes. She said watching her child be held down and beaten while I was crying and screaming for help was entirely too much for her to bear. I'm shaking again, even recounting it now. Dan still works at my company, but we don't work together on anything anymore. I heard he got put on a PIP, but no one really confirmed that with me, which is probably the appropriate course of action. I just stay out completely of his business. I'm doing great at work. I've always felt good about my job performance because, as I mentioned in the original post, I love my coworkers and my work really matters to me. I also stopped drinking smoking and am currently 10 days sober, which has been amazing for my productivity and my mental health. Still addicted to nicotine, damn zins, but that's the next thing to go, taking it one step at a time. Thanks to all the kind internet strangers for your support. Apparently my story will soon be made public to the media, but hopefully you don't hear about it because the video is still mortifying for me, even though I clearly did nothing wrong other than panic, which isn't really wrong given the circumstances. Plus, then my identity will be exposed and I'll have to make a new Reddit account. Hope Dan doesn't have Reddit and find this, but at this point he knows what I think about him. Hi Dan, now for a comment. Reasonable Star 959 said, "It will all work out. You have a good attitude, despite the awful ordeal you experienced. If it happens to be made public, the people who care about you are who matter. Great for you for quitting drinking and smoking. That's amazing. Keep on going, one step at a time, one day at a time. Take care, we're pulling for you." Am I the idiot for questioning my husband's secretive behavior only to be blown away by his Christmas surprise? My husband traveled for work last week and was very cagey about some packages that may or may not arrive while he was gone. He went so far to have my dad on standby to come pick it up off our doorstep before I would see it. He's been back home for 3 days and has given me strict instructions not to go into his office. I usually bring him breakfast in the morning, but I've been asked to leave it on the banister outside his door. He's also spent a good 10 hours locked up in there during his free time doing something. I can hear his tape measure wibble around and occasional bangs and furious typing. He always comes out smiling and refusing to talk about what he's doing, just that it's Christmas stuff, and I should mind my own business, lol. I'll admit, I did a great job with his birthday present a few months ago, but we've already decided that my big present this year is the puppy we've been planning for months and I get to bring home soon. I have no idea what he's up to in there, but I know for a fact he's working very hard to make me happy, and I feel extremely loved. He doesn't know I'm about to knock it out of the park with my Christmas shopping this year. I can't wait to see who wins. Edit to add. This man was not a Christmas person when we met, but I adore Christmas, and over the years my enthusiasm has rubbed off on him. I still wouldn't say he loves Christmas, but he sure does love me and making me happy. I'm so lucky to have him in my life. Now for a few comments. One commenter said it sounds like he's accepted your challenge and mentioned they are on the hunt for a really good deal on a new cell phone. OP replied that this is her favorite thing to get competitive with him on, mostly because she's an excellent gift giver, so she usually wins, but between whatever he's cooking up in there and the puppy, she doesn't know how she's going to beat him this year. Another commenter suggested getting matching pajamas for all of them and the new puppy. OP thought it was a wonderful idea and mentioned she's definitely going to buy a matching set of ugly Christmas sweaters, their favorites. A different commenter shared that they're not big on gift giving and usually buy their own gifts, or at least say what they exactly want to each other. OP responded that they do the same thing with a Christmas list and a few surprises thrown in for fun, and hoped the commenter finds the perfect phone for their wife. Another commenter shared that they gave their husband the perfect gift 2 years ago, which was 30 uncleaned ancient Roman coins. OP said that it's her favorite feeling in the world. When they were very poor, she saved up for weeks to get him some wool socks to keep his feet warm, and he choked up about it. The socks are falling apart 10 years later, but he still loves them. Now for the 1-month update. I have terrible news. Today, for the first time in 13 years, I have lost Christmas. I am out of my league. My husband has surpassed my greatest expectations. It's over. We picked up our new puppy the week after Thanksgiving. The weekend before was a mad dash to get the house puppy-proofed and Christmas ready. In the middle of that, husband announced that this year we're getting an 8-foot tree. We had to have my dad meet us with his truck to get it home. It looks fantastic. Since then, I've had my hands more than full with my now 11-week-old puppy. She's in jerk, and I love her so much. But between the constant potty trips, forced naps, and feedings, presents kept showing up under the tree, in the fancy wrapping paper, wrapped in hand-tied ribbons, fixed in place by an honest-to-God wax seal. Piles of them. I asked him if he was sleeping with his secretary. Nope, he just said, I've had a hard year, and I deserve a nice Christmas. I have had a hard year, through no fault of his. Just one of those things. I haven't complained, he just knew. Anyway, long story short, he got me a gaming PC. I game in bed due to some health issues that make sitting at a desk very painful. This is fine for laptop gaming, but you're somewhat limited with that medium for the newest and greatest tech. So he engineered a custom monitor stand that attaches to the wall out of the way, but can swing out on an arm right in front of me while I'm sitting in bed. He built the model in CAD, which he had to teach himself to use. He bought all the individual components for the custom mount, which he wrapped individually, as well as all the hardware for my PC. We're going to build and mount everything together this week. Apparently, he's been planning this for months and saving for it for even longer. He put so much time and thought into this, right down to the presentation Christmas morning. I had always written off getting a nice PC build because it's not practical to use in bed, but he wasn't satisfied with that for me. Now I have possibly the nicest gaming PC money can buy, and definitely the most thoughtful husband love can earn. I think he's more excited than I am. He loved the gifts I got for him, but we both know he won this year. He's gracious enough not to rub it in my face, possibly because he's too excited to tell me about how nice my new processor is. I don't know how either of us will top this next year, but I guess I'd better start scheming now. Now for a few comments. One commenter praised the attentiveness, planning, efforts, and heart of her husband. Another said that both of them won, and he did this because she's someone worth doing it all for. OP thanked them and wished them a Merry Christmas. One commenter criticized her for asking if he was banging his secretary. OP clarified that it was a lighthearted comment meant to recognize the amount of work he was putting in to making her happy. He doesn't even have a secretary, and he thought it was funny.